Here we are between two sprints, international, literally across the world, with Jonathan Ward, currently in England right now. How are you doing today? Thanks for joining, and then I'll give you a little bit more of an intro.
Sweet as, mate. No, thanks very much for having me. No, it's good today. Obviously, it's blue skies outside. It's not always the case here in the UK. So no, it's a good day.
Yeah, when Adam and I were in the UK, literally, like, we hadn't seen the sun for however many days it was, 10. And then when I flew from Scotland to Ireland, we were above the clouds, and I was like, oh my gosh, the sun, this is amazing.
It's like, I don't know, we'll go Matrix, like a movie quote, Matrix where like Neo shoots out and then it's like,
Yeah.
comes up in the sun and then they shoot back down. It's a bit like that, mate.
Exactly. So we are here between two sprints. I forgot to do this earlier, but I'm your host, Matt. We have my co-host Adam Rolfe, and then Jonathan, currently with the Bristol Bears in England, but he has been all over the world. From Australia, he's done some stuff in France, just high-level rugby at all levels and all locations. But I want to give a little story / shout out to 1080 being the glue that kind of brings everyone together, right? And Jonathan and I go way back. I don't even know how long ago this was, but I remember I was on Simply Faster. I looked up my name to find an article of mine to send to someone else, and then your article popped up, and I was like, "Why did my name pop up for his article?" Right? But you referenced an article that I wrote, and I've been making content since 2016, and of course, when you post it, you assume like someone's going to read it, but like the fact that someone actually used it was just like kind of crazy. And then I think we connected about that. Fast forward however many years it was to like a month ago, meeting you in person, was just super, super crazy. I was running around helping set up for our event in Manchester. And Adam goes, "Hey, here's Jonathan." I was like, "Okay, cool. Nice to meet you." He's like, "No, no, no. This is Jonathan Ward." I was like, "No way. Finally.
Yeah.
No way. Like, awesome article. Super nice to meet you." So just want to give you a shout out to, just learning, growing, making content, and just super, super small world. So I appreciate you reading my stuff, and super glad to meet you.
No, mate, I'm glad you put it out there because there was definitely a moment where obviously any first time user of 1080, we're not too sure what we're going to do. And so having your articles there to help guide me in my prescription was it was really helpful. And obviously meeting you in Manchester in person as well. Yeah, it's a small world, the S&C world, but it was finally good to, I guess, put a face to the name.
Finally. So I guess that leads us to our first question is kind of what got you into it. So whether it was you were at a club that just happened to have it, or maybe you were kind of pushing towards purchasing for your club, or just when you finally got your hands on it, kind of take us through what that first kind of experience was like. What brought you to 1080?
Yeah, so I was in Australia and then there was an opportunity to go to France and Grenoble. And this was back in 2019. And as I arrived, they just bought a 1080 and there wasn't much out there on the market of how to use it. And most, I guess in that first year there, it was all about assisted and resisted sprints. So we were just playing around with it, like throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, different distances, different weights. Everyone's doing the same program. Then we're going individualized. In rugby, we've got, gym sessions, we've got field sessions, we've got individual speed sessions. And so we're just seeing how it can fit within each of those. Player flow, at the time we only had one. We're pretty fortunate. The French rugby team sent their second one to us when they weren't using it. So we did have two at sometimes. So yeah, it was just a lot of learning in that year of trying to fit it into gym sessions. You don't want any bottlenecks. And so trying to play favorites without playing favorites, like who gets to run on it, who doesn't. And then seeing obviously over long term the adaptations that come from it and the improvements. So yeah, that was that's how I went up in 2019. Went to Grenoble. Luckily they bought one a couple months before I arrived, and yeah, just we played on it every week, like 3-4 sessions a week, and a lot of learning happened that year. Didn't have any issues in terms of injuries or like player buy-in. Like it was just all the boys were on board. Yeah, there was no kind of I guess handbrakes put on it. So we had a very good coaching staff they loved. Our head of the rugby team was an old player, and he loved physical performance aspect and speed. And so anytime we pulled it out, he was there too. He loved it. So it really made my job easier.
So you mentioned that that's kind of what you did, resisted and assisted early on. What are you doing now? Are there different things you're looking at in your current situation?
Yeah, so after Grenoble, I went to Provence, which is Grenoble's in the mountains and Provence is like down lavender fields and the vineyards and stuff. So if you're looking for a holiday spot, definitely head there. And yeah, when I was there, I started doing like setting speed limits, and then doing variable resisted runs. So, starting heavier, finishing lighter. And now here where I currently am at Bristol, pretty much only resisted sprints, just over varying distances, just working. It's still pretty early doors here. We've only about 4 or 5 months into our season. And with me being new here, I didn't want to just open up the whole toolbox and throw it at the boys. So, a lot of resisted sprints, just working through like 50, 40, 30, 20% VDEC stuff. So yeah, that's what it looks like currently.
Super, super cool at Bristol with I saw that video with you guys have like the F1,
Yeah.
and then on the TV, and then everyone's sprinting at once.
Yeah.
I'll let you say how many units you guys have, but it's a little bit more than 2 that you had
Yeah.
in France.
That's it.
But do you remember like the big light bulb moments, or just any kind of moment that sticks out, or anecdote about, oh wait, I can individualize now, or oh wait, variable loading, this makes so much sense. Like when something kind of clicked as you were throwing stuff at the wall. Do you remember a click moment or two, if that makes sense?
Yeah, there certainly was. Like it happened slowly over time. Like in rugby, it's a bit like American football. You got lots of different body types, and so if we're gonna break it down like American football style, like you wouldn't run a no lineman at the same way you'd run a quarterback assignment, and the same in rugby. So we got big boys, smaller boys, faster boys, and so it was a bit like, okay, I've been putting like my very strong and powerful boys to the same program now, and they're just not stagnating, but I think they've reached a limit where the resistance runs just wasn't doing it for them anymore. And so that's where it's like, okay, well, then do we focus on the other end, going assisted? Do we then go variable? So as they're driving out the blocks, it gets, as they reach that target velocity, obviously, we can talk about it a bit later. But yeah, like they're driving out, and as the weight's heavier, and then as they get towards that target velocity, it drops off. And so they're able to just like sit up a bit more. So instead of just say focusing on an early acceleration phase, you can kind of put like early acceleration, late acceleration, transition phase all in one run. So you're ticking the boxes as they go. So yeah, definitely came the needs of my athletes. Definitely, I was like, look, I've been like squeezing this toothpaste tube dry now. I need to get something else out of it. So yeah, definitely that was assisted and variable. And then there was a speed limit. So because on the 1081s, the max weight you could put on was only 30 kilos. And we had some big Polynesian boys, and 30 kilos, it wasn't even a 40% VDEC for them. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, I need to put the brakes on somehow, like another way. And so that's where, you set the speed limit of the machine. I was definitely told by 1080, please don't do that, you'll break it. But it's like, look, I need to slow these boys down somehow. And so, yeah, that's when I was just playing with the speed limit settings, and it's good. It's definitely now with the 1082 having the 40 kilos, it's definitely makes it a bit easier. I'm not using the speed limit setting anymore. I wouldn't really have to. So yeah, that was just a lot of trial and error.
It's that process is my favorite, where it's like, I need it to do this, I'll figure it out, versus like, oh cool, I can do variable, and you try to fit it in your system. Like it should support kind of what you're doing. And no, the 40 kg is like the heaviest 50% I've ever calculated back when I was doing NFL combine stuff. It was a 270-pound rugby guy that could jump 30, just like a once in a lifetime guy, right?
Yeah.
I think his 50% was like 40.1 or 40.2. So I always say like 40 kgs is like enough,
Like the 0.0001% like point. Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. No, I think that's the experience I've had with most coaches, that once you get above 30 to 40 kg to hit peak power, that 3 horsepower motor in the Sprint 2 is it meets the requirements of any human being. Yeah. So that's nice. And I'm glad you've been able to adapt. Do you think, okay, so when you talked about assisted sprinting with the guys that are already really strong, right? Because I've had that conversation with coaches. They're like, all right, my in football, offensive linemen, they're plenty strong. That's not an issue. Their first step, they're strong. So they started doing assisted sprinting, like short distances, like 5 yards, 10 yards. Have you done what distances are you assisted pulling some of your people?
So if we're like in rugby, our forwards, and they're probably a bit like the O linemen, like they're not going to move too much compared to say your skill position. So for us, like our backs. And so with the assisted, it was almost like an assisted acceleration just to get them out the blocks faster. So that's what we're doing with the forwards. That's over 5-10 meters. That's like a big Polynesian boys. And then when it's more our backs who can open up to 30, 40 meters, even 50 meters, or an intercept try, they go full field and score an intercept. So yeah, those boys, I'm working between 30 to 40 meters. They'll probably have a 10-meter lead in, or a 20-meter lead in, and then I'll go like a 10-meter fly. So yeah, the forwards generally it was about assisted acceleration, and for my backs it was about assisted max velocity.
That's perfect. Now, because I think in the track world, who we've talked to, right, Matt, when people talk about assisted, they look at it totally different than Jonathan. They're looking at, okay, long distances, it has to be perfect technique, low load. Are we doing overspeed? Are we trying to go above max velocity? Are we just trying to help them get up to acceleration? How do we use variable loading? So with your bigger athletes that don't run as far, like and maybe give people an idea of like how much do they weigh? Because it's very mass dependent.
Yeah.
And I think people miss that sometimes when we do assisted. Like if you're a really big person, that's totally different than being a very small 50-kilo person, right? And so the amount of assistance we do. So tell them a little bit like what that would look like on weight of an athlete, and then how much load would you need to help them get that assistance? Like let's just say that short distance.
Yeah. So if it was going with my bigger boys, and this is the thing, you can have a 120 kilo, 130 kilo forward, and you can have a Polynesian who's a type 2 fiber, and then a white dude who's a type 1 fiber, right? And so and as you pull them out, like your fast fiber guy is more likely to self-organize and get that, strike back underneath him and be able to, he won't fall over. And so I take that into account too, definitely. So I would probably be pulling out the gates, maybe only anywhere from 6 to 10 kilos. It's not that heavy. And then I can go a little bit heavier on the Fijian boys, but I would say for anyone who's not really comfortable, you start low and go up more. So I wouldn't go too heavy because I'm worried that I would pull them over and they're not confident to get out themselves. So yeah, if the boys are confident, I'd be 10 kilos, maybe even more. I'm just also very wary of breaking any technical changes that I don't want to encourage. So yeah, but when it's more the backs, I would go even lighter. I'm talking about 3 to 5 kilos, to pull them up to speed. So that's, it's all playing around. I think I could go heavier on the acceleration side of things, but like I said, I'm wary of pulling them out too fast. And then they might just pop straight up instead of driving out more. So yeah.
Less is definitely more.
Yes. Yeah. Some boys like, let's go. They're like a 10-meter second run, put 10.5 on. I'm like, no. Yeah. So yeah.
Especially how it's set up. Like if you think about a 5-meter run or even 10-meter run, like and they're being pulled, it's only like 6 to 8 steps, maybe. It's like, hey, huge knees, 8 steps, and then depending on where you calibrate it, and then it'll drop right away.
Yeah.
So you can definitely set it up for more success, or you just learn how to do it, but 10 at first glance, I'm just like, man, like that's a lot, but they're big boys, and it's only, again, 6 to 8 steps, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
What I want to hear you kind of dive in and talk about is variable loading, because that's something that we have not that many people do or would really know how to apply. So there's the hockey world, they go light to heavy because you can't have all that load when you have no speed on ice, right?
Really?
So you want the load to kick in once they're kind of going, right? It's interesting. They go like 4 kilos up to 8, right? Versus, and also the skating stride, you go tall and choppy, and then you get into like lower and longer strides, like once you're cooking, which is the exact opposite, where you're low and long when you excel, and you get upright, higher stride frequency. So what are your general, like I say as a coach, it'd be like 25% VDEC down to 10, but for most athletes, that's like 12 kilos to 5-ish, around the velo of like step 4 or 5. Right?
Yeah.
So it's 4.5, 5 meters a second. So that's just my general kind of rule of thumb that I just tell people. What are your general settings-ish? Do you have a framework like that? How you describe and coach and cue the athlete to be successful on variable, because it is a unique stimulus, right?
Yeah.
So from a quantitative perspective, kind of how do you do it? And then from a qualitative perspective, how do you do your variable?
Yeah. So I guess if people aren't familiar with the variables, it's like you've got to know 3 things, like your starting weight, your end weight, and the target velocity. And those 2 are tied in together, obviously, the target velocity and the end weight. And I've gone anywhere from 50% down to to 10%, but not in the same run. Like I would go, hey, 50 to 30, and then I'd work from like a 25 to a 10%, So so an example of what I do with one of my good athletes, probably go over 20 meters. is we go like a 50% VDEC to a 30% VDEC drop off. So if, for example, his 50% VDEC weight is 30 kilos, so that's the starting weight on the cord. His target velocity, if I want 30% velocity loss, is 7 meters a second. And then so that weight will align with that. The weight will align with the target loss, which will be, call it 18 kilos. So the first weight is 30. The second weight I'll put in is 18, and it's 18 when he reaches his 7 meters per second. And with rugby is one thing I'll definitely say on variable resistance is these guys are very force dominant. So that they will be able to get up to 50% VDEC while pulling that heavy weight quite quickly. If you've got some people who are a bit weaker, you probably have to put that a bit lower because they might not actually reach the target velocity before the end of the run. So yeah, we've done 50% VDEC to 30% with target velocity losses over 20. We've done 25%, start with 25% velocity decrement weight resistance to a 10. We've done that over 30. And yeah, in terms of coaching cues, it's definitely, again, just drive out, like an airplane taking off pretty much. Definitely some boys, if they're thinking, oh, I'm late acceleration to transition phase, I need to get up, but they actually get up a bit too early and they just kind of get out the acceleration too early rather than driving through it and come up naturally from it. And then the inverse is you actually have boys that kind of like fall over because they're not used to that weight coming off, or they're still thinking I've got to accelerate through this. Like, nah, boys, like stay up, get tall, thigh at 90, whack the ground, So yeah, it depends on the different athletes, how you're going to cue them. If someone stays down longer than another other athlete or an athlete pops up generally. So variable resistance is like, once you wrap your head around it, like, okay, the 3 things you need to remember: starting weight, end weight, target velocity, and then the distances. Plus you need to know individual athletes, like, is the distance enough for him to actually reach target velocity early and then have that stimulus through to the end of the run. So yeah, it's,
how have you, besides playing around and using Matt's rule of thumbs, this is a question we get a lot, is like, where can I point users of the 1080 system to kind of learn more about variable loading, which is what you just shared, but like, how did you get some of those insights? Like, was it purely experience, or did you learn it from someone else, or is it like
myself? I'm my own guinea pig. I've got quite robust hamstrings and calves. Like, touch wood, mate, I haven't had a soft tissue injury in a long time. So, but no, in France, so what would happen in France is you'd have a playing group. So imagine like in American football, you've got a 53-man roster, then you have your practice squad, right? Or so only the 53-man roster kind of kit up for the game. So I would then work with the practice squad. So then I'll be like, hey boys, today it's all about experimenting, and I'd be like,
heck yeah.
we're putting this weight on. And I was kind of lucky to have that freedom because my bosses like trusted me. I didn't go out there and do like an hour on the 1080. It was literally like, we've got 3 runs today, and I'm hoping that I'm putting the right weight on the right speed for you, and you'll get it before the end. And maybe it was only on the last run where I was like, okay, actually, I'm going to play with this a little bit, and now you're in the zone that I need. So there's a lot of experimenting. Like the first time experimenting, like I said, players it was too heavy, and they weren't actually able to get to that target velocity, and so they finished the run, and it wasn't lighter. And then some players would like excel out the blocks, and whilst they would like maybe a longer acceleration period, they were like already in that transition phase max velocity, like for like 20, 30 meters when I wanted it a bit shorter. So a lot of playing around, mate. And and don't be afraid. Like, athletes are more robust than we think. As long as you're smart with your loading, you don't throw them in the deep end and you're asking them to do like 10 reps, after they've done lower body or the day after a game. I think just be intelligent, but don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, where the 1080 does do a lot, but not everything, where it's still just good training, right? Like for overspeed, you have to on ramp, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like 2 whole phases as you're building up to it, right? Or
100%.
don't do it after a game, or you should be a little bit more individual than just applying blanket kind of loads, where it's like it's good training supporting what you're doing. It's just hardware and software that makes that easier,
Yeah.
So but just the process, like Adam and I, like, we always joke that like we're self-taught, like no one taught us,
Right.
So super cool to kind of hear some of those anecdotes and some things that have stuck and some things that you tried and aren't around
Yeah.
anymore, but you did it. So
could you speak to the fact that when you went to this new club, kind of how you're integrating the 1080 with the players and the staff? Because that's a question we get a lot, that people really, they don't really have a good feel of like, how do I just fit that in? You just said that, right? Like, you can't use it. As much as everybody would like to use a expensive piece of kit that's very valuable for everything, it takes a little while to integrate. And I would love to just know your experience of what have you found that helps work that into the process for other coaches so they don't have to go through some of the same banging their head in the wall of how to get guys to get on the machine.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm very fortunate in the 3 clubs I've worked at. We've got the 1080, like here at Bristol, for example, we've got 5 1080s. So I came into a program that has had them for 4 seasons already. So I didn't have to change anything. Players love them. Players understand them. We bring them out twice a week. Players clip in. They know to select their names, and know how to change the weights, and so forth. So it's kind of automatic here. It's one of the reasons why also Bristol, was appealing to come to Bristol was, it was already all in place here. And then it was the same at Provence. Like I was taken there because the head of performance there was like, hey, look, we've got a 1080. We want to get up. We're going to have a faster team. We feel like we're very physical, but we're a bit slow. So there was no I say backlash or pushback there. It was pretty much accepted. Like, I wheel in the machine and also definitely look confident or understand the machine and know how to use it first. Because if the players see you not sure what you're doing, or coaches see you not sure what you're doing, that can definitely kind of go against you. So yeah, just make sure that you know how to operate the machine, and if you don't, then just fake it till you make it. And then Grenoble again, went there, and they're pretty what's the word I'm looking for here? Forward thinking, Grenoble. So when I went there, they were one of the first users in rugby for the 1080, and like I said, the head coach there was an ex-French player, loved his speed, and so whenever we pulled it out, he was all about it. And there's one thing I'll touch on too. One of the things about the 1080 is just that it drives competition, live feedback, it's intent. The players love it, they get around it, creates a good vibe. And so it's, if you can get the players to buy into it, like anytime you give data or feedback to the players, whether it be gym aware or what bike 6-second sprints or something, the players buy in. And so that's just another benefit of the 1080 is it's real easy to get buy-in.
Well, it's be prepared. So when it is your time to talk about it with your athletes, with your coaching staff, whatever, you can coherently and smoothly and not stumble over your words, what I want to do with it, what the benefits are, how it fits into our system, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And then when you do get your opportunities, crush it.
100%.
So definitely, again, it's just good. Know what you're doing, know how to talk to it with an athlete or a coach. And then when it's your time to shine, don't mess it up,
Yeah, 100%. Home run, hit out the park, mate.
But I'm sure having a few to start, it's a lot easier to talk about the benefits when you already have it. So you sure know how to pick your rugby clubs, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I've been very fortunate, mate. Very fortunate. So I'll keep praying that God provides me on a good path, and hopefully see where it takes me one day.
So last big question. Although we've given plenty of nuggets between the assisted excels, overspeed, variable loading, I'm very action oriented and kind of what's the point? Part of half of our audience is people who are not users that just enjoy training because they'll still learn from this, or they're interested in learning more about 1080, right? Try to get something for their club. And then also there's the people who are users. So if you had to be a little bit more concrete and give people homework, right? I know homework, I suck, right? But something that someone can, again, start their experiment process, right? How to do it, how many sets and reps, what loads to put on the machine. If you had to send someone down one rabbit hole, what do you think would be the first one you would kind of point them towards, giving them some homework?
I definitely say first time 1080 users just resisted sprinting, because the benefits on that is just numerous. So I would say get it on yourself and do a force velocity profile. And a force velocity profile, I would, if you make it really easy, just like do 3 runs, 1 run, 2 kilos over 40 meters maybe. So what's that, like 40 yards? You need to make sure you top out velocity. If you're not topping out your velocity, it plays, it can miscalculate your force velocity profile. And then you go, so 1 run, long run light, 2nd run, like middle distance, I don't know, depends youth athlete, female, male, but I'd probably go maybe like 15, 20 kilos, and then 1 short run, 10, 50 meters with 30 kilos or more if you're on a 1082. See your force velocity profile. That's if you're a new user, 1080 user, and then you can play with your the velocity decrement, sorry. And if you're already established, then I would say play with variable. For me, I'd go resisted into variable, into assisted, into overspeed. That's like kind of how I build it up over my athletes. And so, number 2 would be variable. And then with that, again, you play your starting weight, your end weight, and your target velocity. And like I said, that target velocity and end weight are tied in together. And then, you need to make sure that if you want the weight to drop off slowly, you want it to drop off quickly. Yeah, just experiment. Just a good warm up. Good warm up. Don't want any hammies or calves going, but yeah, resisted sprints for 1080 first time users, and variable for those who've already quite well established.
We all can't be blessed with hamstrings and calves like yourself, you know.
Very much. Man, I got no calves, but I tell you what, they do the job, bro.
So start collecting your own load velocity profile, the light, medium, heavy. Save to profile. It'll tell you everything to do, and then it'll give you the VDEX, and then you can apply the VDEX to your variable.
100%.
You know, so it's definitely all collected. But you know, how efficient and effective can you get in tapping the soft? Like when I first was on a 1080, it was in 2019-ish at TC Boost, a private gym, and I was like, I've only seen this on social media. How am I ever going to learn it, right? And literally just the next 3 times I lifted, I like warmed up, but I did some athletic stuff, right? Like you run, you jump, and just for 3 workouts on my own, I just like messed around with the software before there was a screen on the Sprint 2.
Yeah.
And I remember after those 3 workouts, I was like, oh, it's not that bad, you know?
100%. It's like second nature after a couple times.
So for the load velocity, the force velocity, and the VDEC, we have how-to articles on our website, and also how-to videos on our YouTube, which is a little bit kind of simpler, and they can reference it back. So check out those articles, do your load velocity, apply the VDEC to your variable, and away you go.
And share what you find.
I was going to jump in on that, because we do provide onboarding as well as continuing education for all our customers. So if he just said a whole bunch of words that you didn't really understand how to apply, we're here for you. That's literally what we want to do, is because we do know this is still very new to people, but it's effective. So Matt, I think Jonathan got you talking about load velocity and force velocity, so our time is up.
I know, what the heck?
You just start going on your 2 favorite babies there. But I do want to know what we plug in right now. So
where can we find you,
Jonathan, right now? Where can they find you? Where can you share things that they can learn from?
Oh yeah, I mean, it used to be Twitter until, you know, what's it called? All those restrictions kind of got lifted, and now Twitter for coaches is like you can't see anything. So on LinkedIn, Jonathan Ward, or on Instagram at Physical Perform. So yeah, those are my 2 where I'm more active.
Fantastic. So those will be tagged in the description, and also when this is posted on social. But Jonathan Ward, what a guy. Again, super small world. Today is the glue that brings us all together. Super glad I was able to meet you in person. Thank you for your time today, for sharing your insights, and just for being a mad scientist in a good way, you know, pushing 1080 in the field forward. So thank you very much. Thank you to Adam, and we will talk soon.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.